but I'd like to call to order we have an echo?
It's me. Hang on.
I'd like to call us to order on the second part of our presentation.
Eric, I know you got a group of people outside.
Okay. So my ranking has informed me that I'm rushing and I will wait till we get everyone in. I will take the observation. So I think now that with my esteemed co-chair, I think we're ready to start. And those of you who are on YouTube and are seeing, it's the Advanced Manufacturing Education Working Group report.
Good morning.
All right, good afternoon.
Afternoon. Right?
Yeah, sorry about that. Senator Hartley and Representative Meskers, Senator Martin, Representative Harrison, Representative Cheeseman. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Eric Brown. I've been working with the working group you all set up about a year ago. We're really excited to have an opportunity to give you the work product of the working group today. Just before we get to our slideshow, slide presentation, I just wanted to introduce a couple of the manufacturers who were involved in the effort, just to give a little context for them to explain why the issue is so important to them. And then we'll move right into the slideshow from there. So I'll start with Mark Aletta from Bauer.
Hi, Mark Aletta, Chief Operating Officer for Bauer. We're a 108-year-old aerospace manufacturing engineering firm in Bristol. And we have about 40 engineers. We have about 40 skilled workers in our shop. And our number one issue is finding skilled labor, people to work on highly complex, highly automated test equipment that we manufacture. And be it CNC machinists or electrical technicians or hydraulic mechanics, we can't find them. They're not in the Farmington Valley. They're not in the greater Bristol area. The best program that I've seen is at Snuntuck up in Enfield. But the issue is students graduating from Snuntuck are not going to come to Bristol. They're just not going to make that commute. They're going to go to Springfield. They're going to work in companies up in Windsor Locks area. Likewise, students graduating the high schools in Bristol, they're not going to go to a program, an educational 2-year program up at Snuntuck Community College. They're going to go get a job delivering for Amazon maybe. So there's a huge gap there that we need to fill. We put on a 30,000 square foot addition at Bauer. About a year ago, we opened that up. We're growing. We have ambitious growth plans, but we can't do it without the skilled workers. And the tech schools, the vocational high schools, they're not producing enough, and they're not producing a high enough skill laborer that we need. I'm also the immediate past president for Manufacturer CT. We're the largest manufacturing trade association in the state. We have 250 member companies, and I speak on behalf of all those manufacturers as well. Number one issue is skilled workforce. It's not supply chain, it's not taxes, it's a lack of skilled workers. Thank you.
If I might, it would be two things. One, I'll make an observation first. I waited tables all through college, and I remember my first job in banking. And I think my first job was at a lower wage scale in banking than it was at waiting tables. And the difference was that I was maxed out at how many tables I could wait on at 24 or 22 or 21. And I certainly was beginning a career. So I assume the Amazon job might be competitive on a salary basis on year one. So that, where would you say the differential shows up? And if you're talking, I'm assuming the Amazon driver in year 5 is not making materially different from year 1. And I assume your engineering, your entry level employees in year 5 are like, is it 20% more, 30% more? What kind of wage growth do you see for that skill set?
Yeah, I think to your point, we're bringing in a entry level, let's call it, student who has the requisite skills, maybe at $22 or $24 an hour, and they can quickly ramp up to $30 an hour. They could do extremely well in a company like ours and grow with the company. And then there's opportunities to get into engineering and to go back to school. So we fully support that. The other thing that we've been very successful at are work-study programs. And if we had access to students locally who are going to Tunxus in an advanced manufacturing program, we can bring them on in a work-study program part-time during their graduating year. So I think there's huge opportunities for our youth.
So you're looking at this as particularly essential to the pipeline.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes.
Representative Harrison?
Russell, Jessica Chavez, who is the training manager of Trump USA, who is probably has one of the leading apprenticeship programs, German-American apprenticeship programs in the state. Very experienced in the area, so she'd like to say a few words.
Just 1 second. I believe Representative Harrison had a question for the prior speaker. Representative Harrison?
Thank you. Just for clarification, work study, and I know there's both tech schools, particularly Bristol Tech is out that way. Can you do the same thing with the graduating seniors and get them to work and begin to get them to study? Just clarification.
Yeah, very much so. So we're pursuing all avenues, and we brought on 2 students from Bristol Tech, one as a welder and one as an electrical technician. So we have certain jobs that they can get involved with even the more basic skills, but someone that would be in an advanced manufacturing program, we can certainly work with their schedule and bring one of those individuals on board even 10 hours a week, just to get familiar with our product, our culture. And if it's a fit, the goal would be to bring them on full time. So absolutely.
So the students in the vo-tech programs are not at a high enough skill level yet? Is that what the issue is?
That's correct. And they won't be based on that curriculum, just coming right out of that high school. They just don't have the advanced skills that we need for most of our advanced manufacturing positions.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. And I don't know if I'm getting off script here in terms of what our agenda is, but so to follow on with Representative Harrison's question, so what about those graduates from the community colleges, the advanced manufacturing curriculums? Do they meet your criteria? So the high school tech student does not. They're not uh, educationally mature enough is maybe a way to say that. But what about the community colleges?
So maybe others have a comment on that. From my experience, the students coming out of a 4-year program are primarily coming into the engineering track. So they're we have a demand, we have a need for them too, but they're filling other positions for us. They're generally not interested in working in our trades on the shop floor in manufacturing. They would be more in the engineering positions.
And the community colleges?
In community colleges and other 4-year colleges and universities. That's my experience.
Okay. And this one will be a more pointed question. Is it because the vocational tech schools have not updated their curriculum in your estimation? Are they not providing us with the graduates at the skill set that we need?
I think, yeah, go ahead.
There is one program within CTEX that is turning out fairly qualified students, and that's Plat Tech in Milford. They turn about 14, 16 students a year. They're being snapped up by local companies, Sonatech and other area companies. They've got a new school. They have new equipment and a new curriculum, and it is probably the best program, certainly the best high school level program. The other program on the community college level is Nuntech, as Mark said. Again, we got Milford, we got Enfield. We don't have Bristol, Farmington, Waterbury, anywhere between. So that is what we'll be talking about.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I guess I'm going back to our last presentation today, which I don't know if you sat for. So my question is, within the educational system, those vocational tech schools, is both the equipment and infrastructure providing the levels going forward that we are looking to provide in this one program we're looking at? Do we need to upgrade the entire system?
They need to be
It's the
upgraded
fundamental
and
question.
they need to be expanded as well. There are elements which we'll touch on that they're doing well. But geographically, these programs need to be where the businesses are.
I caught that from the
Yeah,
presentation.
in order to make and Jessica can touch on that.
Okay, sorry, we presented you and have stalled you out. Why don't you go ahead, Jessica? I apologize.
That's okay. Take double round. So my name is Jessica Chavez. I'm here representing Trump Inc. We are located in the Farmington Valley as well, just around the corner from Tonks's. We have the same challenges as Mark was saying, but additionally, I want to mention that we have been running an apprenticeship program for over 15 years. In this apprenticeship program is a 2-year program where we hire pretty much anyone that has the attitude and the possibilities to be hired by Trump at the end of the 2 years with a full-time position. And the reason behind the apprenticeship program is to fulfill the needs that we cannot find anywhere else. So with this program, we still have challenges, and I can mention 2 of them. One of them is that hiring apprentices, letting them know that the program exists and that there is another possibility for manufacturing. So we cannot find or we cannot make the connection with the high school system, with the lower levels to kind of like use it as a pipeline for our apprenticeship program. And the second thing is that our apprentices are required to go to school as a part of the program. And that is almost a challenge every 6 months. And the reason behind is, as my colleagues were mentioning, the only good program that is provided is an ASNONTAC, which is 1.5 hours sometimes with traffic for my apprentices. And Tonks's used to have an advanced manufacturing program. While it was good to have, it was not the full need, which is something that we are gonna touch a little bit more. So those are my two challenges. One is to recruit our apprentices and our general employees for manufacturing. And the second one, to have a reliable school system that is close to my apprentices to be able to fulfill at least their 2-year career. So that's.
Go ahead, Senator Martin.
Thank you. So, Mark, I heard from Mark and Jessica about Asnatuck being far away and Milford being too far away. Have you made this known to Chancellor Chang as well as President Maduka regarding what's going on?
Well, we unfortunately have had little input and communication. We're actually, Eric and I have a call this afternoon with Chancellor Chen and President Maduko. President Maduko attended our meeting last Thursday, and we did have a discussion. And we can elaborate on that, but they're aware that the geography is challenging, and that's part of what we'll get into.
I
Thank
do
you.
want to mention something, if may I. I have also brought up this topic to the different community colleges. There is the dean from Asmontauk, Mary Bidwell. She has been very supportive on trying to make arrangements for our apprentices to be able to do remote learning or trying to do the labs at a different times that might not be as difficult for our students, but it's still not enough. So that's, I would just.
Jessica, you mentioned the perhaps the lack of awareness of the apprenticeship programs in your company. What do you think would fix that?
We have tried several things over the years. One of the things that we have done is to do speaking at the different high schools in the different towns. We also do career fairs at every single university at Connecticut and many other resources that our department use. And we are doing a little bit different this year. We are going to start doing the advertising at the different community colleges with the support of Mary Bidwell. She has been very supportive of this. And there is a third option that we are exploring, which is actually in partnership with CCAT. So that's something that we are looking forward in the future, but it's not done yet.
What was that last one?
CCAT.
Oh, CCAT.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
What about social media?
Oh, we use plenty
You do?
of,
Okay.
yes, we do advertising, press releases, yeah.
Jessica, I'm going to make a, Henry, I'll interrupt here. Jessica, I'm going to make a suggestion, which I've done relentlessly. All of us are on a 2-year electoral cycle. Those of us who are aggressive about it are doing e-blasts on a weekly basis. The first selectmen and mayors in the towns are as well.
Mhm.
I think some of the job opportunities in the recruitment, I don't know that many of those state representatives or senators would be adverse in their districts to say there's job opportunities in the manufacturing sector, it's a leg up. Maybe you want to go directly to people. One of the things with social media is if you're not doing something absolutely ridiculous on TikTok and you're trying to appeal to people, we're all swamped.
Mhm.
So you don't look at systems that aren't normally part of your lane. So people who are looking, community leaders, nonprofits in our area tend to be the people who pick up our e-blasts. And if we've got job opportunities and promotional stuff, I bet you we have more continuous strikes on our messaging because we're out there on a weekly basis. So you're going to have trouble opening up, closing, having people who the general public looking at it. So you might want to go House Republicans and House Democrats, House Senate, House Democrats, ask the people in those districts to include your job search opportunities, what specifically you're looking for, age group or range, and say, we're having an open house on site. We encourage the parents and the kids to come.
Yep.
I think we'll promote it for you.
Great idea.
Thank you.
So I think we'll touch on
Oh, I think
You've got Representative Harrison
some
too,
potential
sorry.
solutions.
You got us very engaged, Mark. Okay, Representative Harrison, go ahead.
think
So another question that you kind of briefly said, is it possible to make this an online? So we have this community college up in Enfield, and can we spread the wealth by doing it online and being able to fulfill what you need? Just
In some cases, it's not all the time. So it's not possible to do a full-time education.
I'll comment on that. So at Bauer, in these advanced manufacturing skills, be it welding or CNC machining or, you know, highly skilled electrical technician working with automation like we've never seen before and servos and all this, it's hands-on. It needs to be hands-on
Understood.
training. The theory is great. Even when we're hiring engineers at Bauer, we want engineers that are coming from colleges and universities with maker spaces, with hands-on programs, labs, because they're the ones that get it and they're the ones that can hit the ground running. So the virtual, you know, for some aspects of that curriculum, sure, but it has to be a hands-on training program.
nope, completely understand. Just
Yeah.
thought I'd ask the question.
Yeah, no, it's a great question.
So the lead-in potentially is you could do 3 months. If you had an 18-month program, you could do 3 months online, but ultimately you'd need 15 months of physical presence with
That's
the
right.
machinery.
That's
Okay,
right.
perfect. So there is some opportunity space to consider some remote introductory work and then follow through, but you still need the physicality.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you for your input. We also have Dan Cocciola here. We have Bill Smith from the Central Connecticut Robotics Alliance, who will be able to field some questions when we're through. So this presentation is a very brief summary of the report that we've prepared and given you. We encourage you to please take the time to read that report and to fully understand the urgency of acting on the tremendous opportunity that we're presented with here. So we'll try to keep it brief. We'll preserve more time for discussion and questions, but you know, the background you've learned so far and from the previous working group is that manufacturing is undergoing a transformational change, that rapidly developing technologies are not only changing the game, but they're creating a whole new playing field for this skill set. Technical education needs to adapt, and it needs to adapt quickly in order to keep up. In the areas that are taking initiative and creating this skilled workforce are winning the race. The race is on, and unfortunately, we're kind of still getting warmed up here in Connecticut on the advanced manufacturing side. Our working group is, you know, as touched on, lack of skilled workers is the biggest barrier for manufacturing growth right now. And in a McKinsey report has reported that demand for traditional skills will decline over 30% in the next decade, while demand for technical skills will increase by 50%. The technology and the skills required are growing. Our working group is made up of subject matter experts from the Office of Workforce Strategy, Workforce Development. You've met members from industry. We've also had members from higher education, including Karen Messina Birch, who's the principal administrator at a National Science Foundation's National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing, based at Tunxis. Professor Thama from the Robotics and Mechatronics program at CCSU, along with other staff from CT State. And we also have Dan Cocciola, who's currently the Director of Career Pathways and Workforce Development at EdAdvance, but he's done some remarkable things in the dual credit area, which we'll touch on. So we had a very qualified working group, and we all put in a lot of effort and pretty much have a common vision for what we're hoping to create for a model for I-4.0 workforce training. So the bill, House Bill 6755, which created this group, established two directives. One, to establish the Industry 4.0 training model that could be duplicated throughout the state, not just a one-off, and to facilitate its implementation, first iteration, at an existing advanced manufacturing technology center at the community college level. So we worked hard, studied, and came up with some of the following recommendations and findings. In developing the model, we need to consider the inputs, the supply and the outputs, the demand side. We've talked about the supply side. Can't find the students. On the output side, the demand side, we need the skills, as Mark had elaborated. The current programs that exist are too far away, or they're not producing the skill set that we really need. Connecticut's done a tremendous job creating precision machining programs, both at CTEX and at the community college level. Both at Asnuntuck, I think there's 11 advanced manufacturing centers around the state at CT State. What was considered an advanced manufacturing center is no longer. Essentially, machining, CNC, welding, that's industry 2.0 or industry 3.0 technologies. Yes, those skill sets are still needed. Machinists and tool makers are in demand, but there's a whole other skill set that is growing in demand that isn't being addressed. So what we're proposing, and what I'm showing you is a kind of a block diagram, generic model of what we feel would be a model advanced technology education center, ATEC. So the next piece would be to add the Industry 4.0 piece. This says with a Festo partnership, but there's other industrial suppliers. There's in this changing, rapidly changing technology piece, it's really industry partners who are going to keep up with the equipment and the curriculum to keep up with the advancing technology. We cannot expect the educational system to keep up. We struggle as OEMs keeping up with the technology that we're actually implementing. So there are training systems out there, Festo, SMC, International, Armatrol, to name a few. But we need to partner with one of these industrial training system partners. CTEX is currently using Festo at the program I mentioned at PlatTech, the new PlatTech. It would be most advantageous if we standardized on a system and stuck to it statewide, just for credentialing and interchangeability between programs. So
Could I stop you there just for a second?
Yes.
So I want to understand that. So the question of the credentialing and the establishment of system, who gets to pick the system? And that's not an aggressive question. It's an inquisitive one. Who picks the system? And the question is, who imposes the system? Because I'm hearing kind of two things. One, we need to use the most modern system, and the adoption, it sounds like the adoption needs to go into our educational system.
yes, it would be ultimately the educational system that decides. CTEX has chosen the Festo program.
Okay.
It's an NC3 credential, national something.
I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm-
So, but the point is that industry needs to be leading and creating the curriculum. They create the training systems. They create educator training. That's a big piece of it. Where do you find the teachers to teach this? You're not going to find them. You're not going to get them from us because we're not letting them go and you can't afford them to teach us stuff. There are systems to train current educators in how to deliver the content and keep up. So that's one finding that we have, is that you really need to get on board with one of these. And it doesn't really matter who, but you kind of need to stick with it so that there's continuity
Continuity.
from the high school level on.
So Mark,
Yes.
does the current program or system that we have that CTEC has adopted with the Festo, is that working?
Yes, it is working. It's
is
just
working?
getting going. This is the first year they've had it at the new high school. Their equipment was delayed because they were unable to place the purchase orders because the funding wasn't released. And so they were just getting going. I'm on the advisory committee at PlatTech as well as Bristol Tech. And so I see the progress there, but yes, they are adapting to the system and the students are liking it. The equipment is modern and exciting. And so it's working so far.
So you've been in conversations with Dr. Solik
Yes,
regarding this? Okay.
yes. And the new superintendent. He came from Platt Tech. He was the principal of Platt Tech. Now he's a superintendent. So
Thank
Platt
you.
Tech is kind of the star of CTEX as far as mechatronics goes. Now, CT State currently does offer mechatronics at both Asnuntuck and Quinnebog. Quinnebog is in Danielson, yeah, which way out east, and Asnuntuck is way up in the north. Those programs, they do have 2-year programs, both certificate and associate's level programs that are applicable, but inaccessible at this point. So one of the things that we're recommending is that we bring the current curriculum from either of those programs. They're slightly different, but they would be the starting point for a program at Tunxus. So that it's not like you're blazing new ground. The programs exist, and actually it was slated to start at Tunxus. Mary Bidwell has it slated in. It was withdrawn when the building was delayed and the whole program was shut down at Tunxus.
So, Mark, so the curriculum that is starting this fall at Tunxus, is that going to?
No,
fit
what
your
is
needs?
starting this fall is another machining program,
Okay.
which is what they bought the equipment for, and they're prepared to launch. The building will be open and the offices will be open, but they have a machining lab, and they're going to be teaching. We're going to have another machining program, the 11th or 12th in the state, which it's good foundational stuff. You need those skills. A lot of it, if you're doing mechatronics and actually building stuff, having those facilities are great, but the curriculum isn't the skill set that we're talking about.
Thank you.
Along with that curriculum, there's the need for the labs and the hands-on that Jessica touched on. That is one of the things that we'll be requesting and need to go along with the curriculum. We could bring the curriculum in, but we need a lab and the equipment to be able to do the hands-on piece. So we'll get to that. So we talked about not having the students. We believe the best way to recruit students is to engage them on the campus and inspire them and let them see themselves belonging there. Bringing them to campus, having them engage with potential employers like us, being able to go there and recruit students for an apprenticeship program. So at Tunxus, we see this inspiration arena taking the form of a community robotics center. At other community colleges, it could be something else. It could be a cyber lab or an additive space. But it's to be able to bring the high schoolers to the campus, get the look, the feel, and feel like they belong there. That's important, an important piece of getting students, some of whom may go on, maybe targeting to going out to 4-year university, but a whole lot of others that see that as beyond their reach. But at a community college level, we can make that accessible, and we'll get a little bit touch on that through dual credit, which is we'll touch on in a minute.
Just a thought, an idea. So I mentioned this outside to all you about how you guys have invited me to your facilities and love the tour. Have you thought about a field trip with area high school kid students to visit 3 or 4-year companies in a one day trip?
We all give field trips, and we do CTEX and high schools, but the problem with that is we're looking at a kind of a very small slice of the student population, and there's a way to target them, which we'll get to. And we believe that is the youth robotics programs, at least for this robotics and mechatronics program that we're talking about. There are thousands of kids involved in youth robotics. There's 10 high school FIRST robotics teams within 10 miles of Tunxus. So the Robotics Community Center, which we'll talk a little bit more about, is what we believe the best way to bring the targeted students to the program, show them the program, fully engage them there. And I've seen this working at Kettering University out in Flint, Michigan, highly regarded engineering school. They have a robotics community center on campus Currently, 30% of the enrollment of Kettering University, which used to be General Motors Institute, so it's a very well-regarded engineering school, our first robotics alums. They are using this to leverage their entire enrollment process by bringing the kids. They have events there, they have summer camps there. It's amazing to see. I also saw a much lower scale program in downtown Detroit, serving underserved youth after school. 17 robotics teams in a space not much bigger than this. Youth robotics is the way to target the interested youth that you want to bring into this career path. So
Just briefly, Senator
yeah.
Martin, so in 3 weeks, we have Southington High School coming back to Bauer again this year with about 30 students who are STEM, interested in STEM technology, manufacturing, engineering careers. And they get excited. I love to have them come through and they get excited and they're exposed to mechatronics, mechanical, electrical assembly, what we do, very complex. And when they leave or before they leave, they ask, what are my options? What would you recommend in terms of next steps for education? And they're not interested or can't afford a 4-year college education. And I'm at a loss as to tell them where to go, because what they need is a program like we're advocating for at Tunxus. Something local, something 2 years, something they can graduate high school and jump right into. But the key to it is something local.
Covering are on their first robotics team. They have a team of 80 that they limit to 80 at Southington High School.
Mark, if you don't mind, I would like to add something. I think the tours and the company visits are very strong and we use them a lot at Trump. We are an open doors company and we have plenty of visitors on yearly basis. What I think is important is consistency. When these kids come to the factory, they are impressed, they leave, they are impressed for a week or two, and they might not see us again until another year or maybe not at all. So I think consistency is important, and therefore that's why the recommendation for the robotics in the Tunxus Center.
Thank you, Jessica. So as I mentioned, the Inspiration Arena or the Community Robotics Center would have, we could have competitions and sponsored events. We have teacher workshops there. We could also would have a recruitment station where companies like us could go and recruit students to get into our apprenticeship programs. So enlightening the students, what we envision is that the robotics field is on one side of a wall of windows looking in at the mechatronics lab where these students can see, hey, this is available here. I don't need to go to Worcester Polytech to get this. I don't need to go out of state to get this. I can get this right here at home. So the next piece is curriculum alignment, allowing the pathway to continue into a 4-year degree if the student was interested. So members of our working group actually between CCSU and CT State have worked through the mechatronics curriculum and have aligned the courses and are working on the articulation agreement that those full load of credits will pass from the advanced manufacturing program at CT State to the robotics and mechatronics program at CCSU. That alignment is good. They have worked well together. It's a real no-brainer. They've been talking about doing it for years, but this working group actually got them to sit down and do it. So that piece is done. But although a 4-year degree is nice for our engineers, it's definitely not required for rewarding and highly paid career, as Mark explained. Our technicians who travel, who go install around the world for us and go service, they make way more than our engineers do. They're making $50 an hour sitting on a plane headed to China. And work overtime, and 2 weeks later they come home with a month's paycheck in their pocket. And get to see the world. So these are exciting careers, but it takes the skills. I'm sure you guys do the same, Mark, right? So it's no exaggeration, the 6 figures and the travel time. Other piece of the supply on the supply side, it's the dual credit piece. Offering courses in high school, the comprehensive high schools. CTEX is doing a good job, but they are very limited on volume and they're scattered around. The way to get more enrollment, we believe, is to offer dual credit. Members of a group have studied this. Dan and I interviewed the vice president of Ivy Tech out in Indiana, their statewide technical community college. They have over 70,000 students, high school students enrolled in their programs at Ivy Tech. We have around 70,000 juniors and seniors, I think, in Connecticut. But the reason they do that is because, and they're not alone, but other states have statutes for standardized dual credit programs. We have some shining examples here in Connecticut of dual credit programs, but they're a patchwork, usually developed by a single school district with a single community college campus. The reason Dan is here is because I learned about the program that he created at Hamden High School, the Hamden Engineering Careers Academy, which last year at Hamden High School, 20 seniors graduated. Before they got their high school diplomas, they received their associate's degree in manufacturing engineering. That program just blew me away, how he was able to articulate that. So Dan has moved on and is trying to leverage that program and expand it throughout the state, up in Torrington, in the northwest corner. But he's extremely knowledgeable at this. And I talked to Dr. Maduco actually after our meeting on Thursday, and he's in agreement that a standardized dual credit program is badly needed to stem the tide of declining enrollment in our community colleges. States that have these articulated agreements are increasing their enrollment in the community college, not declining like here in Connecticut. So I realize that the Commerce Committee probably isn't going to do anything about dual credit, but just be aware that that's a huge game changer.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you there because you're going to educate me a little bit further on the concept and the structure. So I understand standardized dual credit. So this is for the exact same coursework it's the equivalent of AP credit, but on the manufacturing skill set?
Yes, we would articulate, and that's part of the curriculum alignment that we're discussing next. And we've got Mr. Cocciola here, who is far more knowledgeable about this subject than myself. So I'll let him speak on this.
Thank you, Mark.
Dan, you're speaking to the unwashed. So walk me up the schedule of like, how do you envision that dual credit like type of coursework, what happens, and what kind of certification we're trying to get to?
Yeah, great questions. And Senator Martin, great to see you again. You came and visited our site in Torrington right when we were under construction, and we still are. But so what we did in Hamden and what we're scaling in Torrington right now is the program at Asnuntuck. Let's just use that for an example. Mary Bidwell is a great partner. Her staff is training high school teachers and teachers that work for the RESC for Ed Advance in mechatronics and robotics. The teachers are already have some skills going in, and we're building up their skill set so they could teach the coursework that's articulated as Asnuntuck courses. Our students potentially can come out with that associate's degree, which is a 39 credit certificate. I'm sorry, the certificate in mechatronics and robotics. That's the Asnuntuck program. We could take that and do it in Torrington. We could do it in Bethel. We could do it in Farmington at Tunxus. We could do it in Naugatuck. We could do it anywhere we could get kids to. And so the model that we're building in Torrington is we have a number of districts around us. We're getting the kids on vans. We're driving them to our site for 2 classes a day, not unlike partial magnets that exist. If you think of the RCA or the ECA Arts Academy models down in Trumbull or New Haven, it's the same concept. You get a kid on a bus at 12 in the afternoon and you bring them to a site, and that's where they get this lab work. You know, kids go at different paces. Some may finish with the certificate, others may finish with an associate's degree, others may finish halfway to the certificate. In which case, then they transfer to the program at Tunxus or Esnuntuck, knocking off the cost, right? The cost is a barrier, knocking off the cost of getting those higher ed degrees. So the real key is, though, and I heard this mentioned, the VOTEC schools are tremendous. And they have 2-to-1 applications for every seat. So unless we double the number, our capacity at the VOTEX, we're never meeting this need. And Mark's right, there's about 30,000 high school graduates a year. This is a pool. Obviously, not everyone's going to be interested in these fields, but this is a pool of potential workforce candidates that we can develop the skill sets in. And what the students choose to do with that is entirely up to them. But if we drive this kind of instruction to those students with really high quality work-based learning, where they're doing more than a field trip, they're doing more than shadows, they're doing internships and pre-apprenticeships through the Department of Labor and Todd Birch's office. They come out, and Mark saw our students in Hampden last year, they come out as extraordinary products ready to enter industry or further their own career.
Sorry about that. That's very helpful. I was just conceptually, I'll boil it back down exactly where I started now from the understanding. It's the equivalent of AP courses that people take for college to prepare them for careers in manufacturing at some level. So presumably some of the coursework would qualify for those who are thinking about engineering degrees. Some people who are thinking about manufacturing and advanced manufacturing. But it kind of focuses away from some of the liberal arts advanced placement courses into courses that have more practical hands-on experience.
It needs to at some degree, but there's room. Listen, Connecticut high school diploma requires 9 credits in the humanities.
Right.
So students are still getting a humanity-rich experience.
Oh, I wasn't worried about it. I just
Yeah.
wanted to understand the differential
Right.
in.
Yep.
So I will go back to it's the equivalent of the AP for manufacturing. It moves the kids forward towards a career. That's the important thing.
Exactly.
That's my buzz. Since I'm not on education, I'm on commerce. I'm good. Thanks. Representative Harrison.
Okay,
I do have a question or sort of a comment too. 4-H, so I'm very involved in that, and you know they've got a lot of STEM clubs coming up. They're active in robotics, and was recently sitting through a trustee meeting where it became aware to us that they're looking for this kind of the people that are in those homeschool environments are looking for this. Have you reached out at all to try and co-op any of that with them?
I'd like to refer that question to Mr. Smith, who is a mentor of Operation Peace Robotics, which is a 4-H team based at the Arthur G. Russell Company. His kids were homeschooled, were Tunxus graduates, and he is taking on the role as president of the newly formed Central Connecticut Robotics Alliance. So he can address the 4-H piece and robotics in general.
So, and we don't need a long explanation. We're here in commerce. I'm happy you're doing that. I'd be happy to hear that. But I just want to make sure on our side, we're seeing more and more clubs coming, through STEM clubs coming through because of the kids that are being homeschooled. And it's certainly, I would think, a place to also tap for your needs, right?
Yeah, that's exactly, just like you said, because that's what we have is we have lots of 4-H, we're a 4-H team. And so we get lots of homeschool kids coming from all up throughout.
If you could just hit the
sorry.
mic, just because of for anybody who's on or that for the recording.
Yeah, so we have students coming from throughout the whole state to join our team because they don't have it available in their different areas. And it's expanding. There's lots more 4-H teams joining. And some of these kids had no idea that this kind of stuff existed. And they come to the robotics clubs and they learn it. And then they go on to this field. We had a student that came with their brother, and then she went on to become an engineer. She had no clue engineering existed. So like you said, 4-H is, and it's growing. And that's one thing, you know, we're working on that throughout the state.
So the Central Connecticut Robotics Alliance is an alliance of area teams, working together to, establish and administer a community robotics center in the Central Connecticut area. Hopefully, we'll be able to do this at Tunxus. If not, have reached out to local realtors in the Bristol area. We're going to establish a community robotics center. It makes most sense to have it with an educational program that we can bring the kids to, as opposed to bringing them to a warehouse somewhere that, you know, so they can drive their robots. But there's going to be a community robotics center in Central Connecticut. So that brings in the nonprofit piece. It was a good segue. So this isn't one piece isn't going to fix this problem. As I said, it's a you know, an input, output, a supply and demand issue, and all of the pieces need to be put together in order to create the volume and train the volume of talent that we need in industry. You know the number, Mark? By 2030, there's going to be in excess of 1 million manufacturing job opportunities in the United States. I forget what the state number is, but it's in the tens of thousands. And we need to train that workforce, and it's not training as we have been training. We need higher level skill training. And then the underserved community piece of the legislation. The first robotics is very inclusive, and the CCRA in their founding documents, that one of their purposes is to serve underserved communities. I know if you're aware that recently the Manufacturing Innovation Fund, which I'm a board member of, approved $2.2 million to help fund and expand youth robotics programs in the state, targeting alliance districts, of which Bristol is one, New Britain is one. So the mission of the CCRA would be to help expand youth robotics programs, K through 12, not just high school level, at the center that we're looking to build. Leveraging that money from the MIF. That MIF proposal is not going to be successful unless it has a strong ecosystem supporting it and supporting new teams. And this is what we're trying to build. So the other piece was to develop the model. You know, we developed the model and then to facilitate its implementation at an existing facility. So why Tunxus? Well, the first reason why Tunxus is because they started this project at Tunxus. Jim Lambella was able to acquire this building with funds left over from building this center at Asnuntuck. This opportunity became available adjacent to Tunxus. I think it was a tremendous insight to purchase this building. It's cost more than it was expected to partially renovate it. That being said, it's got fantastic potential, and it's almost there. It's located within walking distance of the main campus. It includes over 200 parking spaces, and it's got about 30,000 square feet is still available for additional laboratories and the robotics center. The classrooms are there, and as we talked about, the advanced manufacturing or the precision machining program, equipment is there, ready to be launched, hopefully in the fall. Is that not advancing? There we go. Another reason for why Tunxus, as we mentioned before, Tunxus is currently the National Science Foundation's designated Center for National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. The grant is to advance technical education nationwide, but it currently isn't being leveraged at all here in Connecticut. She's assisting programs at Central Community College in Columbus, Nebraska, one in Minnesota, and several others around the country. There's no real programs here in Connecticut that are taking advantage of this national designation. She's got a grant for education and educator training. It's not for facilities use. It's not for staffing, but it is a prestigious center with resources able to tap into the centers of excellence in this area around the country. It's a big deal, and unfortunately, it's being underutilized and under-recognized. So,
Mark, Mark, I know that they, Tungsten is supposed to become a regional, they received like $2.4 million from some type of grant. Can you explain that to me?
So I don't know if that was previous to this grant. They were a regional center, and then they were named the national center. Karen actually was able to get a $7.2 million grant. I'm not sure what the time period is for that, and that's potentially renewable if we're doing, Connecticut is fulfilling its obligations to the National Science Foundation. We have the potential to have a national spotlight and a national center at Tungus at Spring Lane. We are not acting on that opportunity.
But that 2.4 million, from what I can recall, was for this specifically with this next gen and ATE centers, or is that different?
No, that's what
That's
this,
this.
that's this.
That's this.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that Spring Street facility is going to become that regional office.
Yes, the office will be in that center.
Right? So, and then, okay, so it's the 2.4, is that to develop administrative operational costs, or is that?
I don't know the breakdown of the NSF grant. Is Karen on the line? I don't know.
That's okay. It's all right. I just want to understand. I know that we purchased $8 million. We have the building. We renovated part of that building to do the 15,000 square foot advanced manufacturing. We purchased equipment, and then there's the office component. And I'm just curious to know if, those offices are already constructed and part of that 8 million, and now the 2.4 that's coming from the National Science Foundation, right? And just,
Okay, yes, so the offices are completed and are part of, there was I think either phase 2 or phase 3 of the renovation, and it is part of that 8.2 million, and they're complete. The 2.4 would be part of the National Science Foundation grant, which is not to be used for facilities and equipment. It's for staffing, for running events and sponsoring programs, development programs for new and innovative technology training areas.
such as your
Yeah,
robotics.
There's a very interesting Central Community College in Nebraska has a very interesting program, which we won't get into, but they've come up with a very cost-effective way to get mechatronics training to remote high schoolers in remote parts of Nebraska. They did it during COVID, and it's extremely interesting and cost-effective. We could get into that at another time. We've also shown the Central Connecticut Community Robotics Center here. There's a perfectly suited area of that building, which you've seen, Henry, with a high roof, and that would it's currently not slated for anything other than warehousing, and it would be a perfect home for the Community Robotics Center. So we've got our sights on that, but as I said, we're going to build it somewhere.
Thank you, Mark. I just want to understand the parts, right? All the pieces of the puzzle here.
Yep. Okay.
And it seems like we're definitely going in the right direction regarding this.
So I think you've stated that right. It's a puzzle. All the pieces are there. The opportunity is there. We just have to link them together to create what could be a national model. So, and we also have a strong nucleus of regional private sector companies, represented here. We have Bauer and Trump and Arthur G. Russell, but we also have Marty Guay from Stanley Black & Decker has been on our working group, and Jason Howie from Avna, formerly OK Industries, as well as other interested parties. We have not expanded this out until we have something to be talking about. which would be the apprenticeship consortium that we're talking about forming. So another reason for Tungus, here's a map showing distressed communities within 15 miles of Tungus. We mentioned the outreach to underserved communities that was mentioned in the legislation. You can see in pink is Bristol, and I'm not sure what the down by Middletown. Those are two different designations here, alliance districts and distressed communities. I think they're pretty much one and the same,
Looks
but
like,
Bristol being one of them.
looks like Meriden.
There's mass transit accessibility nearby. It's not quite linked, but it would be an easy lift to be able to provide links to the mass transit coming from Hartford and New Britain areas. So the key elements directed by legislation, establishing the public-private partnerships. We are trying to do that. We need the public partner piece of that. We're talking with Chancellor Chen and Dr. Maduko this afternoon, and hopefully we will be able to get some indication whether they will bring mechatronics to Tungus in the future, and whether we can begin trying to form a apprenticeship consortium with the local companies in order to bring them to Tungus, as well as hire them and employ them while they're going to school.
Eric, are we going to need legislation of any type to do this?
No.
Not for this. These were just ticking off the elements that the legislature asked for. I think if you go back to the model, we hit all these things with the public-private partnerships, the robotics center, the underserved communities, and a recommended college. So this is just to say that, the report and the model that we've proposed checks all the boxes, if you will.
Thank you.
So to implement this, we list 5 implementation elements. Completing the necessary infrastructure at the center. That's where you come in. We're going to need some funds to do that. Implement strategies to increase enrollment. We mentioned the dual credit. We mentioned the robotics center, having events at the center, bringing kids there. It's no exaggeration to say that we can have hundreds of STEM enthusiastic students in that building every Saturday if we had a practice field for them to drive their robots at. We're currently focused on FIRST robotics, but the CCRA is agnostic to that. There's a whole nother program, VEX robotics, that is big in the state. We want to engage the entire youth robotics community and build it. And having a place to do that is really important. These teams are operating in libraries, they're operating in classrooms, isolated at schools. They go to the competitions, they get all excited, they work together, but then they go home. And if they're lucky, they have somewhere that, they can roll out a carpet and drive their robot, but a lot of teams don't. The first time they drive their robot is when they go to competition, right, Bill? And then coordinate the curriculum. We mentioned the associates and bachelor's programs being aligned with CT State and CCSU. The high school piece is identifying those, as Representative Meskers called them, advanced placement manufacturing courses that would likely be able to go into the high schools. Dan's working on that with his project. And then the last one being establishing the industry-led apprenticeship consortium. That's where we come in. And we need some time to do that. The FAME program, typically they have a FAME Academy. FAME is the Manufacturing Institute's Federation for Advanced Manufacturing Education. It is probably the leading model out there. It's a Toyota-based program, and they get area companies together to partner with their local community college and create an apprenticeship program. So, but for us to do that, we need an educational partner agreeing that, yes, they will be our partner and willing to work with us, coordinate class schedules to work with our work schedules. That's the way these apprenticeship programs work. There's another great model that we talked to from Florida, the Space Coast Consortium, Apprenticeship Consortium model. Area companies, aerospace companies in Florida worked with East Florida State to create their own apprenticeship consortium to build satellites in Florida. They didn't have a program. They worked with the local community college, created the program they needed, and now they're helping other organizations follow their model. So that's another possibility. Eric, you want to cover the budget piece?
Thanks a lot. Yeah, the message here, I think, is it's still somewhat of an unknown. We tried to do the best we could to get a number for you folks. The best we were able to do is some approximations. We did get information from the school system that, you know, they felt that the second line here, the $35,000 master plan and 125,000 pre-construction services studies were needed to get a better handle on what exactly the dollar number is, which is important, obviously, for you and everyone to have, because it's kind of hard to move forward without knowing what's needed. But you know, that's kind of the best we were able to do.
Just for everyone's information, until last Thursday, we were told there was no program and there was no path forward. So we didn't receive a lot of cooperation with trying to come up with a number, because they said there wasn't going to be a program, that we needed to go find another location. So thanks to some of your influence, I believe, that is not the case now. That the program will open, but to be able to finish the facility and be able to outfit it for the program that we're talking about, apparently we need a master plan and some pre-construction services.
So why don't we, if we go to the next slide, why don't we just blow through, because we're over time here and I want to make sure we get to the ask. So, but we did, one of the things you asked for were funding sources, and part of one earlier, Mark. You know, obviously bonding is a potential option for the capital investment. One after that?
I don't have your slide.
Oh, okay. Sorry, we got one slide eliminated from the block, but obviously bonding is.
I'm sorry, which slide we're on here? Okay, fine. Bonding source, I'm there.
Block grants have been used for,
back.
you know, funding for operational funds.
Okay.
But then, you know, we don't want to constrain ourselves to there. There are a number of federal grants that come out on a regular basis that are targeted towards manufacturing education nationwide. We haven't taken full advantage of that, and we need to. And also, there's a number of instances where our congressional
one.
delegation has gotten involved
Sure,
and
there.
supplied funding for education. Now, a lot of it relates to
This one,
the
this
presentation
one,
you saw
do
before
that,
ours,
and then-
which has to do with defense industry and the 35% of employment that goes to that industry. That, of course, leaves a lot
maybe
of
it goes on the
industry
backside.
beyond the
Other
OEM
side
defense
is-
contractors. So we need to bring more attention
Funding sources.
to our
Mine?
congressional delegation on those other sectors that maybe aren't as sexy, maybe don't get all the
Right.
headlines,
The next one should
but are
be
really
of
critically
different
important for
ones.
our state.
Uh,
UI's also asked for a timeline. This too was a bit of a challenge, but we tried to come up with one here for you based on depending on when the funding comes through. So again, that's where we're turning to you folks to work with us and others, and certainly the state college system to pull together to find that funding. Once we have it and it's in place and allocated, you know, this is a rough estimate of what we think might be the timeframes to happen. We'd like it to be quicker. We think it could be potentially quicker. Our goal is to have an academic program that includes the I-4.0 technology up and running, preferably by September of 2025. If this timeline is correct, that's too soon to get it going at Tunxus, but we could get the academics going at Tunxus and perhaps use a facility like Central that already has a very well-equipped highly advanced technology lab to do the lab work over there. And then once the facility is completed at Tungus, move it back there. But this is kind of a rough, hopefully a little bit better than back of the envelope, but it's an estimated based on our conversations. Senator?
Eric, or perhaps Mark, how many students on an annual basis will you be producing for the industry?
Typically, a famed chapter or apprenticeship model is around 18 to 24 per cohort and runs 2 years. So, but that's only the apprenticeship piece. The coursework is there, and not all the students are necessarily part of the apprenticeship piece. So you're talking currently the machining program that they're opening will be 2 cohorts of 24, I believe. And that's a target figure that we would have. A lot of it depends upon the size of the lab, and how much lab equipment you have. You can only use, put so many students on training modules at a time. But typically, the cohorts, and that's an important word because the cohort models have proven to retain students much better than non-cohort based or, ad hoc groups. You start the students together, you recruit them out of high school together, and they go through the 4 or 5 semester program together, and can trade war stories with their apprenticeships and their employers. So to answer your question, it would be around 48 students in the apprenticeship piece with additional enrollment available at the coursework level in the classrooms.
Can I add that if it was set up as a dual enrollment site as well, you could double that number by running the high school students through in the hours that the college students were not there. So whatever number you say, 48, we could do 96. Yep.
So 96 in the programmational part of it. And then there's a whole robotics piece that probably has less in the costing structure in terms of a location for robotics competitions, et cetera, right?
The cost for that is actually quite minimal. A non-leaky roof and an access system that would allow mentors to bring their robotics teams to the field, utilize it, access their pits and equipment. The models I've seen, they have shops. At Kettering, they have quite an extensive shop. It depends upon the model, but to get started, the roof not leaking and access to be able to set up a field in there is about what it would take to get us started with a community robotics center. The kids will come. If they can drive their robot, the kids are going to come.
I'm thinking I'm thinking on the basis of what I heard from all of you, it's a combination. There's a recruiting process in the pipeline with the robotics in terms of exposure and contact. So that's the cheap entry level point. But now that I've enticed them with robotics, I either throw them in a room with no piece of cheese and don't capture them, or I have the infrastructure that develops our cohort of future employees, which requires the investment. Now that investment includes, I'm kind of confused on the investment. It's 4 million for,
That's the number that was
We
given
think
to us
kind of-
by CT State to complete the roof, build out a 6,000 square foot robotics and mechatronics lab, equip that lab, and complete the warehouse space to a level of accessibility for the robotics field.
so there's a bonding for the capital of about 4 million, then there's going to be an operational ongoing cost for instructional people, et cetera.
Which was estimated at $1 million a year block grant for 3 years to get the program going, which Mary Bidwell informed us that that's exactly how they got us Nuntuck going, was with block grants for the first 3 years.
And why did it go from go to the unwashed, that being me? We go from the block grants for 3 years, and then how is it that it becomes self-sustaining after the 3rd year?
with enrollment and events.
Because it becomes an enrollment issue, that's a normal attribution per student from the state system, plus their, the cost of a participation. So they enroll in the program at at community college level, and either they're paying for it or the companies that are sponsoring them are paying for it.
One
It's
thing of
revenue
note,
from the students at some level.
one thing of note with an apprenticeship consortium model, the students are earning a good wage while they're going to school. Typically, the schedules are either set up mornings, evenings, or school on Tuesday, Thursday, working Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and probably Saturday too. So the students could be pulling down, 25 bucks an hour as apprentices while they're going. These kids could afford to pay their tuition bills at Tunxus. They don't need to be, relying on Pell Grants and other scholarships, they're,
No, it's good. I was just wondering how it becomes self-sustaining. I'm
Yeah.
not questioning you.
okay, good
That's
question.
good.
I would like to add something in regards the demand. Just speaking on behalf of Trump, we yearly have a demand of 15 apprentices that we've been trying to fulfill. We have been trying to increase our program up to 30 or 35 apprentices, which we first need to be successful to hire the 12, 13 that we want to do now before we can move forward in the future. I just want to mention that in regards demand from the private industry that I work for.
Okay, and I'll tie that back to our earlier conversation where we were talking, I made the comment about stickiness. So what I'm hearing now is the kids are sticky. They're in the neighborhood. They're not going very far. We're trying to provide this training for them to have successful jobs in the community. And that provides us with a talent pool to draw more companies to the area if we're successful. So we're feeding it from the infrastructure of students training. And now all of a sudden, when you start complaining because you're oversupplied, that's going to be the opportunity for competitors to move into the field as well. So it's a win-win. If the program is successful, we're going to have a platform of students who likely have ties to the area. Companies that are going to be now looking at the area because it has a supply of a workforce that they care about. So that's interesting. Thank you.
And to tie it into your previous presentation from CONNSTEP, as I understood the report, a lot of the higher end supply chain is derived from out-of-state relationships, not as much in-state. So this would drive a higher level of technical expertise and capabilities and draw those kind of companies in. So perhaps more of the supply chain could come from within Connecticut.
Exactly my thought. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So final slide is,
Representative Cheeseman, go ahead. Sorry.
What the manufacturers need.
Mark, one
Oh,
sec.
okay, I'm
We've
sorry.
got Representative Cheeseman has a question.
Just a quick question. I apologize if you mentioned it. So what efforts are you making and have you been successful in attracting young women to these activities? Because I think, it's a
We've
big
got-
population and it's
we've-
not something that they may traditionally be interested in. I'd just be curious.
So we've got some shining success stories there. We mentioned that Operation Peace was a 4-H team. It was founded by homeschoolers. One of the young ladies who founded Operation Peace is a senior mentor at Operation Peace now and was working as one of our up and coming design engineers. Operation Peace often has female leadership. I don't know what the demographic is. I would guess close to 50% of FIRST Robotics participants are female. Would you agree with that? What would you guess?
It's close to half. It's probably about a third, I would think.
First, the corporation does a great job with demographics and tracking students and student success. We could get you that specific number. The other thing that needs to be stressed is this is, where we would build this downward from the high school program. The high school kids would be mentoring the middle school kids. The middle school kids can mentor the elementary school kids. First Lego League can start in kindergarten. And the money that I mentioned from the Manufacturing Innovation Fund is targeted all the way down through First Lego League and First Tech Challenge, and along with First Robotics Competition. So we're trying to bury the roots deep and get this pipeline, moving. It's
Yeah.
a puzzle that needs to be put
Yeah.
together, but it needs to be taken holistically, not one piece at a time.
And I love your mention of involving the earlier grades, middle school and particularly the elementary schools. Wearing my other children's museum hat, we got a grant. We have the Lego. We do programs that we take into the elementary schools, which is those early robotics. And so-
It's like any sports team, that the successful high school teams have feeder programs, youth programs, lacrosse in Ridgefield, you go, they've got 5 or 6, peewee
Yeah.
teams. It goes deep, and who's state champion, Ridgefield. Robotics is the same way. We've got middle schoolers engaged at Operation Peace, siblings and stuff, and they pick it up quickly, and you hook them for life. So
And I think, again, particularly when we're talking about these amazing career opportunities, we don't want them to be siloed. And particularly for young women to know, man, this is something I may not have considered, but it's going to be a really cool and I can make a really good living at it, I think is important. So I encourage all those efforts you're making.
I want to add something else. I'm a member of a board of the Women in Manufacturing in Connecticut. So I also represent the women in manufacturing at Trump. And we also do make a lot of effort on trying to recruit girls for our apprenticeship program. And I think using the resources of the robotics and trying to reach them at an earlier age is really important when they are in the elemental school or the middle school. So I think it will also be a benefit for having more girls in the manufacturing industry.
And obviously, the more the girls see, the more they're going to feel that this is something they want to do when they grow up. So thank you. I appreciate those efforts. Thank you.
And I also like to add just a data point on female enrollment. The program in Hamden, 50% female enrollment by design.
So, oh, sorry.
Representative Harrison.
So our earlier presentation this morning, we talked about certain sectors of the state and the industries that they had. And how many of you are suppliers to those? So the talk was the loop of, keeping the suppliers in Connecticut. So we're talking a whole different field here. Okay, thank you.
We are all 3 OEMs. We make equipment. So our staff are the ones that are putting together this high technology and implementing it and debugging it. We are kind of the tip of the spear of this Industry 4.0 skill set need, because we're developing the equipment and putting it out there. Our customers are struggling. I know, in particular, Arthur G. Russell, we make systems that we send out now that customers are demanding all this stuff, and they get it out there and they don't have the staff to keep it going. So they're asking us to provide service. So we're looking at building a service group that can go on the road and take care of our equipment around the world. And good luck finding those people. We're trying to find the people to build the equipment, not just, let alone staff a service group to be able to travel around the world, because our customers can't do it anymore.
But that would suggest very strongly, Mark, not only if you're that far ahead on the cutting edge on the machinery equipment and recognizing the training gap, it sounds like we need to make sure that people such as yourself have a seat at the table with our academics to set the criteria for the training programs, because we need people who are in front of the wave to explain how we can catch the wave. Because if we're doing it from the opposite side, we're not keeping up, which is what goes back to my question on the VTech. Are we doing a 1950s VTech program, which may still have validity, but how are we making sure we're doing the 2024 VTech training?
I love your analogy of the wave, because I use that often. One of the attributes of an apprenticeship consortium is that it's a industry-led group, and they have input on the curriculum, and the curriculum can often be tailored to the needs of the specific area. I have a friend, a former mentee of mine who has now become a mentor. He's currently president of Southern Union Community College in Opelika, Alabama, down near where Clemson is. He started a FAME chapter at his college in during COVID, focused on plastics and injection molding. They have a big injection molding base down there. So they have a plastics program. They have injection molding presses. They have donations of molds from area manufacturers that the students learn to service. So yes, there is input from area industries, and that's why it needs to be local and focused and chapter based. And that's the FAME model. And it's also the Space Consortium model. They are training kids how to put satellites, automate satellite production. So.
Perfect, thank you.
So I just want to apologize. There's been a lot of things going on simultaneously today. But no, I have been with you on this journey, and I want to recognize, quite frankly, your tenacity in hanging in there, because there's been a lot of lows and a few highs. And that's kind of, unfortunately, how sometimes really good things end up happening. So to this group, you have done an amazing job in hanging in there, and also in your presentation today. So we began this conversation a year ago, Mark? Was it a year ago?
Yeah, it was at the conclusion of the last working group on the I-4.0.
Right. This was the follow-on. And we were simply interested in having a FAME chapter in Connecticut. Let me just ask you, will we end up having that as well?
We will have some form of an apprenticeship consortium. It may be FAME. FAME is a leading model. When we are able to sit down and get support from other businesses and sit down and say, these are models available, which model would we like to choose to work with our partner educational institution? There are aspects of the SCAP model that Jessica likes. It's more a German-based model, a European-based model. FAME is more of a American. It's a Toyota developed model. There may be aspects of both that work well, but we will have, if not FAME, something very close to FAME. It's just a matter of what the area manufacturers. Does everybody sign up for FAME? FAME is pretty regimented, and it's well developed. It works well, but it may not be applicable to a program like Jessica. She's already got an established program with, needing 15 or 16 apprentices. She's not going to revamp her whole program if it doesn't fit to the FAME model. It may be more applicable towards the SCAP model or another model. But the underlying principle is that area industry is working with the community college on curriculum and employment opportunities for the students for their careers through college, and essentially guaranteeing a job when they're done.
Yeah, that's the baseline. So however, it ends up being crafted. I just want to say that this is everything we've been talking about. And yes, Eric, you're right. That's what was a conversation this morning. It happens to be embedded in everything, quite frankly, that this committee has been working on and hears. So I also want to thank you in terms of your professionalism. Recruiting, obviously, private sector is very important to us in this conversation. Because the truth is government can't do everything, and this helps us to elevate and sell a model that we've got very strong private sector representation and participation going forward. And in that respect, we are, as a committee, I think, very engaged in this particular proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I had one question for you on the recorded line. When we solve your employment problem, and we build our pipeline, what's your next step in terms of, do you view yourselves as good candidates for expansion? And that, the answer doesn't have to be yes, because generically, if I get an oversupply, then I'm just busy making our new DEC commissioner recruiting more companies. But if we were to solve that growth, is that your major constraint now to further investment and growth in the region you're in? Is it the supply of labor?
At the moment, Trump is already planning to expand their facility. We are going to be opening almost 60,000 square feet next year, and it's going to be a smart factory, which is all related to the topics that we are talking. So we are going to increase the demand as of next year right away. And historically, Trump has been in the Farmington Valley for over 50 years. And no matter the recruitment efforts, we continue to grow, and next year is a proof of that. And we are always on demand of these skillful people because there is always people that is leaving to other places for many different reasons, personal reasons, moving to other states or whatever they are. So there is always a percentage that is required every year, no matter the efforts that we do on keeping them or maintaining the same demand. Hope that made a little sense.
Perfect.
Maybe Mark.
Yeah, I would just add, so Bauer has been in Greater Hartford area for 108 years. We were actually in Farmington, in the Farmington Industrial Park for about 40 years, and we moved close by to Bristol. And we've been there 22 years. We just put on this 30,000 square foot addition last year. That's our home. That's where we're staying. We would love to double our workforce, and we have plans to do so. We're not going anywhere.
Music to my ears. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from the committee? On behalf of the whole committee, and I apologize in the start because I started out right away asking questions. And I didn't thank all of you, people from the private sector who take their time out to try to move the ball forward. So, people come to me and say, thank you for your service. I ran for office. I got what I deserved, I guess. You people didn't. And so I want to thank you for your service. Thank you very much. And it's been incredibly enlightening and helpful. So
Can I
thank
just
you.
make one closing comment? Because Mark's computer went on recommendations, which are in the report and your handouts. But I just like to emphasize, what are we asking for? Obviously, we'd like your help in finding the financial resources to make this happen. But we also need your help in encouraging partnership to prioritize this and make this happen. Frankly, I think the message I've gotten a lot from the college and university system and the community college system is they are facing tremendous constraints budget-wise. So much so that I think it's been hard for them to look over that wall and allow sort of any other thought into their head except how are we going to meet these budget cuts? It was so promising to hear from President Maduco that they have gone as far as to find some money to at least open up the facility in September on the I 3.0 level, which is terrific. I'm hoping that they're energized as well to go the next step. I'm hoping our report, our presentation today has helped energize you folks. I don't want to call them the ugly stepchild, but so much of the attention is on the large defense OEMs when it comes to state priorities for workforce. And I know I hear our chief manufacturing officer, and I hear President Maduco say he gets calls all the time from EB. We couldn't do it without you. But those welders aren't going to be what leads the state as a whole into the future. So we hope, I think that's what we need more than anything is some energy. We are officially disbanded as of today, but I know everybody here would love to sort of continue to help, continue to be part of the solution. So anything that you guys can do to bring some energy to this and to make sure that this isn't the end, but rather the beginning, would be so very much appreciated. And we appreciate again, I mean, you guys initiated the whole thing, so that's terrific. And we're very, very thankful for that.
Yep,
As-
thanks,
as
Eric.
Eric
And
said- Excuse me, as Eric said, we're all vested in this, and we'd like to know what else can we do? As Eric said, we're disbanded, but we want to keep working on this. Any suggestions from you, how to keep the ball moving forward, would be welcomed and appreciated.
so, not so quick. We are going to, help me out, Madam Clerk, I think on Tuesday, have an agenda, a committee meeting on which there will be a title and a bill number for this particular work group. There will then be a draft proposal, which you will have an opportunity to testify on. And we will proceed through the process, and we are hoping for Godspeed to get through it. Thank you.
And thank you for the offer. As they say, no good deed goes unpunished. So we certainly will look for your support. Thank you. I think that it calls our meeting to a close. Thank you very much.